I used to count down to my birthday like a kid. Not for the presents or the cake, but for the pause. A moment to feel seen, appreciated, maybe even loved. This year, I counted down with a different kind of hope. The kind you whisper to yourself in the dark after another cold dinner, another empty smile, another night sleeping on opposite sides of the bed. Hope that maybe this year she'd try. The past year was therapy sessions and scheduled date nights that ended in silence. It was conflict-avoidant affection. I gave her space because that's what she said she needed. I gave her grace because that's what love looks like when you're desperate to keep something alive. I clung to every half-effort she made like it was a promise. We were trying. Or I was. She said she wanted to rebuild. She cried once, said, "I miss us." And I believed her. I convinced myself that love was still in the room, just buried under exhaustion and time. That's the trap of long-term love. You keep giving it CPR, hoping one breath brings it back. So when my birthday came, I didn't ask for anything. Not a dinner. Not a gift. Not even a card. Just presents. Her with me. Fully. The morning started quiet. She kissed me on the cheek, called me birthday boy, and made coffee. No breakfast. No note. Just coffee and a vague, "Where's something nice later?" When we pulled up to the venue, I realized she had planned something. A surprise party, apparently. Balloons, lights, her friends from work, her sister, even a few of mine, though mostly people I hadn't spoken to in months. It was loud. Colorful. Picture perfect. But it didn't feel like mine. The music was her taste. The decorations were sterile, Pinterest perfect. I stood in the middle of it all, smiling and nodding like a guest in someone else's celebration. I caught glimpses of her laughing across the room, drink in hand, her back to me. That's when I knew she wasn't celebrating me. She was celebrating the idea of being a good wife. The optics. The Instagrammable illusion. I felt like a box checked off on a list she never wanted to write. People came up, shook my hand, gave me half hugs. "You've got a great one," someone said, motioning to her. I smiled, because what else do you do when someone praises the cage you're locked in? Then came the moment. She walked over, radiant and buzzing with energy, and beside her stood a man I didn't recognize. Older. Confident. Comfortable. She wrapped her arm around his and said, "This is Aaron, my ex-husband." Everything slowed. Every sound dulled. The blood drained from my face, and I forced a smile because I didn't know what else to do. I shook his hand. It was firm. Too firm. He smiled too easily. She laughed. We kept in touch. He was in town. Thought it would be fun. Fun. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Inside, something cracked. Not just jealousy, confusion. This wasn't someone she'd ever mentioned in detail. Just a name once. A vague story of things not working out. No bitterness, no warning signs of closeness. And yet, here he was. At my birthday. With my wife. By invitation. I started watching. How they stood near each other, too comfortable. How they talked in shorthand, glances, little cues that I'd once known but hadn't seen in months. Maybe years. I kept scanning the room for a way out. A breath. Something that didn't feel like betrayal. But all I could find was her, laughing beside the man she used to love, like I wasn't even there. I stood there with a drink in my hand, warm and untouched, and watched my marriage rot in real time. Everyone else saw a party. I saw the proof. The answer to a year's worth of questions I'd swallowed. Why she stopped holding my hand. Why she stopped touching me with intention. Why her phone lived in "Do Not Disturb," and her smiles never reached her eyes. She wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never really had been. I wanted to walk up to her. Ask why. Confront it. But I couldn't do it there. Not in a room full of people clinking glasses and telling me I was lucky. So I smiled through the rest of the hour, pretending not to see what was right in front of me. Pretending I didn't hear them whisper together by the drink table. pretending that I wasn't the ghost at my own birthday party. And while the music played, and strangers toasted to a man they didn't know, I made a decision. This would be the last time I let someone else define love for me. The last time I begged for crumbs when I gave banquets. The last time I convinced myself that loyalty meant endurance over dignity. The night wasn't over yet. But us? We were. People cheered. They smiled like nothing was broken. The moment I walked in, it felt wrong, like stepping into a photo of someone else's life. I smiled back out of reflex, not joy. She was at the center of it all, laughing, radiant, in control. She wasn't surprised, but everyone else acted like I should be grateful. It was my birthday, but I didn't feel like the guest of honor. I felt like the backdrop. The room smelled like catered perfection. Finger foods on polished trays. Wine glasses clinking with people I barely knew. Her coworkers. Her gym friend. Her sister's new boyfriend. A few of my friends tucked in the corner, as out of place as I was. She looked beautiful. I wish I didn't still notice. I wish it didn't still matter. That's when she waved someone over, casual, breezy. A man. A stranger to me, but not to her. "This is Aaron," she said, smiling too wide. "My ex-husband." The word hit hard. Not just ex, not just husband. The whole thing. I stared. He extended a hand. I shook it. His grip was confident, the kind of firm that wasn't just about politeness. It was a statement. His eyes scanned me the way a man sizes up his replacement, not out of jealousy, but curiosity. Like he wanted to see what she'd downgraded to. I forced a laugh. "Didn't know exes made the guest list." She rolled her eyes. "It's not a big deal. We're cool now." "Cool. Right." I excused myself for a drink. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. From the other side of the room, I watched them. They talked in a way we hadn't in a long time, easy, familiar. She touched his arm when she laughed. Leaned in when he spoke. Like muscle memory. Like habit. People passed me, clinking glasses, whispering good wishes. I smiled and nodded, but my eyes never left them. I didn't know how to look away. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Told myself I was overreacting. That this was adult maturity, that I should be proud she could be friendly with someone from her past. But my gut twisted with every shared look, every inside joke I wasn't part of. Then it got worse. She called for attention, tapping her glass. "I want to give him something special." She pulled out a small, elegant box. Inside, a vintage Omega Speedmaster. My dream watch. The one I talked about years ago, but always said was too expensive. I was stunned. Grateful, confused. I looked at her. She just smiled. "Open it," she said, excited. Then came the dagger. Someone beside me leaned in, unprompted, and said, "Aaron helped her track that down. Took her weeks. They were so picky about the details." They. The blood drained from my face, but I smiled. Always smiling. I nodded. "Wow. That's thoughtful." She met my eyes, but didn't say anything. No denial. No clarification. Just a look that said what? I held the watch, heavy in my palm. It was beautiful. It meant nothing. How long had they been talking? Collaborating? Reconnecting? Was this just a gift, or a symbol? I felt sick. Not because of the party, or the people, or even the watch, but because I realized something deep and undeniable. She had let him back in. Emotionally, maybe more. And she hadn't told me. The watch felt like a joke. A trophy. Not from her, to me, but from the two of them. Like I'd won a prize in a game I didn't know I was losing. Someone asked if I liked it. I said it was perfect. But inside I knew the truth. Nothing about that moment was mine. It belonged to her. To him. To whatever part of her heart still lived in a place I never got to see. And that's when I knew. Whatever I thought we were rebuilding, was already gone. I stood in the bathroom gripping the edge of the sink. My reflection stared back, tight jaw, dead eyes, that fake smile gone. The sound of music and laughter was muffled behind the door. It could have been a stranger's party. It sure as hell wasn't mine. I was trying to steady my breathing when I heard the door open. She stepped in, heels clicking softly on tile. Her tone was light, rehearsed. "You disappeared." I didn't turn around. "Needed a minute." She came closer. "Everyone's looking for you." I nodded. "I doubt that." She folded her arms. "Are you seriously upset?" I turned then. "You invited your ex-husband to my birthday." Her eyes narrowed. "He's a friend. We're adults. You could have told me. It wasn't a big deal." "It was to me." Silence. Her face tightened, defensive. "And the watch?" I asked. "Was that a group effort too?" She blinked. "He just helped me find it. You talked to him about me. I wanted it to be perfect. He knew someone who had it. That's all." "No," I said. "That's not all. You've been talking to him. A lot. I see it in how you look at him. How you listen. How you lean in." She crossed her arms tighter. "You're being paranoid." "No. I've been stupid. There's a difference." She laughed once, dry. "This is what you're doing. Tonight? I didn't start this. You're making a scene. We're in a bathroom. You're jealous over nothing." "I'm not jealous," I said. "I'm humiliated. You gave me a gift that came from the two of you. At my birthday party. In front of everyone. It wasn't like that." "Yes, it was. And the worst part is, you don't even see what's wrong with it." She looked down. For a second, she didn't have a comeback. Then she said, "We have history. That's not something I can erase." "But you buried it," I said. "That's what you told me. You said I was your future. You said you wanted us to work?" "I did. Then why do I feel like the outsider in my own marriage?" Another silence. "I'm tired," I said. "Tired of trying to prove I'm enough when you're still emotionally wrapped around someone else. I'm not sleeping with him. I didn't say you were. But you're connected to him in ways you refuse to be with me." She looked up. "I needed to talk to someone. And you chose him. He listens." That broke me. "So he listens, and you confide in him, and you plan my gift with him. Why am I even here? You're my husband. And what does that mean to you now?" She said nothing. I stepped back. "Exactly." I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't beg her to choose me. I just saw it for what it was, clear, sharp, cruel. She hadn't cheated physically. But she'd emotionally walked out months ago. Left me with the shell of our marriage and the burden of pretending it was whole. I opened the door. The music was still playing. People still dancing, drinking, living in a party I was never meant to enjoy. She didn't follow me. She didn't ask me to stay. She didn't even try to stop me. And that told me everything. I didn't go back to the party. I walked outside, let the cold hit me, let the air strip away everything fake. I sat in my car, engine off, headlights catching the shape of my future, uncertain, but mine. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just breathed like someone coming up after staying underwater too long. I stared at the watch she gave me. Still perfect. Still ticking. Still a lie. I slipped it off my wrist and dropped it in the glove box. It didn't belong on me. Not anymore. I didn't drive home. I drove to my brother's place. Middle of the night, no warning. I knocked once, and when he opened the door, all I said was, "Can I crash?" He didn't ask questions. Just stepped aside. I lay awake on his couch until dawn, tracing every moment of the past year. Every sign I ignored. Every excuse I made for her distance. Every time I told myself it was just a phase. But deep down, I always knew. She'd been checked out long before that party. The ex was just the proof I needed to stop pretending. The next morning, I went home when I knew she'd be at work. I packed 2 bags. Nothing dramatic. Just what I needed. I left the keys on the counter. No note. She'd understand. She probably already knew it was over. I stayed quiet for days. No texts. No calls. She reached out once. "We should talk." I replied with one word. "Why?" She didn't follow up. The silence between us said more than any argument ever could. I met with a lawyer the following week. Sat across from him and explained it all as calmly as reading instructions. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I just wanted out. Clean. Clear. Done. He asked if there was a chance for reconciliation. I laughed, short and flat. You can't fix something someone isn't trying to hold anymore. In the weeks that followed, friends started picking sides. Some said I overreacted. That I should have talked it through. That marriage is hard. That emotional mistakes aren't the same as betrayal. But betrayal isn't always sleeping with someone else. Sometimes it's giving your best self to another person while your partner waits for scraps. Some understood. Some didn't. I stopped explaining. I started therapy. Not for closure. For clarity. I needed to understand why I held on so long to something that hurt to carry. Why I made excuses for being unloved just to avoid being alone. Why I let my own needs become negotiable. I learned something no one tells you. Walking away doesn't always feel like winning. Sometimes it just feels like failure. But the longer you stay where you're not chosen, the more you lose pieces of yourself that take years to rebuild. I kept thinking about the word. Enough. How often I wondered if I was. How often she made me feel like I wasn't. That word haunted everything. But being enough was never the issue. Being respected was. I saw her once, months later. At a coffee shop by accident. She was with someone, maybe a friend, maybe more. She didn't notice me. I didn't say anything. I just watched her laugh, the way she used to with me. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt distance. Real, final, peaceful distance. It was over long before I left. But leaving was the beginning of becoming someone who wouldn't need to ask if he mattered again. I started rebuilding quietly. No big announcements, no dramatic social posts. Just small, invisible acts of self-respect. Waking up without dread. Making coffee in silence. Getting used to the sound of my own thoughts without the echo of her absence. The hardest part wasn't the loneliness, it was the detox. From habits, from patterns, from the craving of her approval even after I'd stopped loving her. I had to unlearn her. Every version of her. The one I met. The one I married. The one who slowly drifted out of reach. I deleted our photos. Not out of hate, just clarity. They were memories, but they didn't define me anymore. I archived the wedding album. I unfollowed her on everything. Not because I didn't care. Because I cared too much to keep reopening a wound that needed to scar. Friends stopped asking what happened. They got used to the new normal. So did I. I learned to enjoy my own company again. Took walks with no destination. Read books I'd abandoned during the marriage. Journaled, even when the pages came out messy and angry and sad. I kept going to therapy. Every week, I peeled back another layer. Why I tolerated the silence. Why I mistook neglect for stability. Why I feared confrontation more than I feared being unloved. I admitted things I never said out loud. That I stayed longer than I should have because I was afraid I wouldn't find better. That I believed love meant sacrifice, even when I was the only one bleeding. That I thought if I gave enough, she'd finally give back. Turns out, love isn't a currency. It's not earned. It's reciprocated, or it's not. There were nights I missed her. Not her, really, but the version of us I had imagined. The warmth, the routine, the illusion of forever. I missed the simplicity of not having to explain why I stayed. Of not having to start over. But every time that longing hit, I reminded myself of the bathroom. Of the look in her eyes when I asked if I still mattered, and the silence that followed. Silence isn't just absence. It's an answer. I started talking to new people. Slowly. Cautiously. No big expectations. Just conversation without weight. Without pretending. Some dates didn't go anywhere. Some stung in quiet ways. But each one reminded me that I was still capable of connecting. That I hadn't become too bitter to try again. But I wasn't chasing a replacement. I wasn't looking for redemption through someone else. I was rebuilding from the inside out. One day, I looked in the mirror and didn't flinch. I liked the man looking back. He wasn't perfect. But he was honest. Grounded. Whole. Not because someone else made him feel that way. Because he finally remembered he deserved to. The night I left wasn't the end. It was the start of learning how to be loyal to myself. And that changed everything. A year later, the date rolled around again, my birthday. No party this time. No decorations, no forced smiles. Just a quiet morning, a full breath, and peace. I didn't dread it. I didn't relive that night. I let it pass like any other day. That in itself felt like a victory. I sat at a small cafe with no one waiting across from me, and I wasn't lonely. I was free. I thought about how far I'd come, not in loud, dramatic milestones, but in subtle shifts. I no longer asked myself what I did wrong. I no longer carried her confusion like it was mine. I had stopped trying to make sense of someone else's choices and started owning my own. People asked me sometimes what happened between us. I kept it simple. We weren't growing in the same direction. That was enough. The details didn't matter anymore. The wound had closed. What mattered was who I became after. I learned to listen to my own boundaries. To trust that discomfort isn't always a threat, it's often a signal. I stopped shrinking to keep the peace. I started telling the truth, even when my voice trembled. I realized how often I'd said yes when I wanted to say no. How often I avoided conflict to preserve something that wasn't even real anymore. I'd been managing an image of a marriage, not living in one. That clarity didn't make me bitter. It made me careful. With myself. With others. I no longer rushed toward connection to escape solitude. I stopped viewing being alone as a problem that needed fixing. One night, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights blink like quiet reminders that life moves forward, even when you feel stuck. I thought about the man I used to be, the one who doubted his worth because someone else didn't know how to love him. He was gone. In his place stood someone who understood that love isn't proven by what you endure. It's honored by what you refuse to tolerate. Someone once asked me what I'd do differently if I had the chance. I wouldn't leave sooner. I'd just love myself faster. That's the advice I'd give to anyone trapped in a relationship that's starving them. Don't wait for proof that they've stopped choosing you. Don't stay to earn something they should have given freely. Don't confuse resilience with self-abandonment. You can be loyal and still leave. You can love someone and still realize they're not good for you. You can forgive them and still walk away. Healing isn't about finding the right person next, it's about becoming the person who won't settle for being an option. My story didn't end with betrayal. It began with a choice. Not hers. Mine.